Hi, welcome to SBR Sports Picks. I'm Peter Loshak. This is our most popular show to a certain segment of our regular viewers into the weekend with BetDSI. Yes, the show is back for another year in 2016. Brent from BetDSI, headlines manager at BetDSI, has graciously agreed to continue this show with us for one more year. Brent, thanks so much for being back with us one more time.
Graciously agreed. That's well said, Peter.
Well, because you're a busy guy, Brent. You take time out of your extremely busy day. I mean, you're the headlines manager over there. You're managing all the action and all the lines, right?
And we're doing this call on a Friday, which means I got a doubleheader in college football.
Exactly. So we really, really appreciate it. Everyone loves this show. Just quickly, for anyone who's watching the show for the first time, the reason it's so popular, Brent discusses all the action that he's seen over the week and all the games that I ask him about, the sharp action, the public action, the betting volume, and then at the end he tells us the notable sharp action that he's taken on college and NFL games. Obviously, that is very interesting and, in many cases, very valuable information. So pay attention. Brent from BetDSI, let's start with college football. Week 2. You ready, Brent?
Yeah, I'm ready to roll.
Okay, let's go. So the first 3 games I want to ask you about just in college football. Week 2, there were a bunch of big favorites, big public teams that got huge covers in week 1, right? And they're back in week 2, all of them as huge favorites. I'm assuming that they're all big, if not massive, public sides, and that's Alabama over Western Kentucky, Michigan over UCF, and Ohio State over Tulsa. Are all those big public sides this week, Brent?
Yeah, let's not forget, though, I mean, the favorites did get beat around a little bit week 1 as well. I mean, that I just want to touch on, like, Mississippi State is a 28.5-point home favorite, losing outright to South Alabama. That was real nice for us. LSU was a real big side as well. So we had some pretty good results week 1. But, yeah, I mean, you know, people, like they say, see the points as they are. Like Michigan right now at home is a 35.5-point favorite. You're thinking, okay, you know, they're going to blow them away. Same thing with Ohio State. But, you know, these numbers get so big sometimes that the sharps come in the other way. And, I mean, we'll get down to these games one by one, but every game that you've touched on is a case where I've got sharp action on the dog.
Are you serious? You got sharp action on Western Kentucky and UCF and Tulsa?
And Tulsa, you got
it
right.
There you go.
Just start from the top. I mean, like Michigan, Central Florida, for example, the sharp action did come in at plus 36 on Central Florida. But, I mean, the familiar terms we use around here is the wager count and the money. And looking at the actual wager count, the number of individual wagers we've taken, it's about 3-1 in favor of Michigan, which is, public typically. If I look at parlays and teasers and things of that nature, it's almost like 6-1. So it's, very one-sided Michigan. No surprise, of course, that Michigan rolled over, Hawaii. They played last week and took care of them easily. So this is a case where I do have sharp money on Central Michigan. My wager count almost 3-1 in favor of Michigan. My money is 2-1 in favor of Central Michigan.
Oh,
of course,
God.
The sharps typically, bet bigger amounts. They'll bet limits, whereas your public guys are betting $100 at a time, a nickel at a time, a dime at a time, whatever it is. This is also a game where I have sharp action on the total. We have sharp action on the under now. We're sitting at a total right now of 53. The sharp action on this Central Florida Michigan game came under 56.5. So you look at the under 56.5, we're sitting at 53 right now, so that's kind of why the sharps are the sharps. That's a big drop, 3.5 points. But the plus 36 on Central Florida, not a huge move. And again, it's just because our wager count is so high the other way. We're kind of anticipating that we're going to get money back on Michigan.
So that sounds like it's a pretty strong sharp opinion then on Central Florida.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
All right, and do you have sharp action on Western Kentucky and Tulsa as well? Is that action as sharp? Is that sharp action as strong?
Yeah, exactly the same kind of situation. The Tulsa money came in at plus 29.5, and they're at Ohio State line right now. Ohio State, we've only dropped it a half point and laid the juice, so we're like minus 29, minus 05 on Ohio State. And the reason for that, as usual, is the public's laying the big number on the favorites. So I've got a wager count of almost 2-1 in favor of Ohio State. My money is almost 2-1 in favor of Tulsa. There's a typical public sharp split that we have working in our favor.
Wow.
Again, counting the parlays and teasers and all that kind of stuff, it's about 6-1 the other way. So a very similar situation with Tulsa in terms of the sharps, money drowning out the public smaller bets. And over to Western Kentucky and Alabama. Sharp action came in there on Western Kentucky. And again, it's a situation where we haven't moved the line much. We're down to 28 right now. Sharp action came in at plus 28, minus 05 on Western Kentucky. Again, wager count almost 2-1 in favor of Alabama. Not quite as strong. Parlays and teasers, I count that. It's about 5-1. So, pretty strong there. But again, sharp action, Western Kentucky, plus 28.5, minus 0.5. So, the three games you touched on are all cases where big favorites are getting public action and sharps are going the other way.
All right, so Brent, for anyone who's watching these shows for the first time, we're doing this on Friday afternoon. Obviously, the games kick off tomorrow. What are the chances that sharp action comes in the other way on the favorites on any of these games?
There's always a chance. You never know. If I could get into the mind of a sharp customer, I'd probably consider myself, sharp on my own. But you just kind of never know when it's going to come in, one way or the other. You take a case like, Florida UMass last week. You're sitting at, 35.5 with Florida. You're figuring that number was so high you would have a lot of money on the dog. But we didn't get any money on the dog. We got under money, but nothing sharp on the dog at all. But we had favorite money for sure, which is typical of the public. So you never know. Just because you got a high line doesn't mean you're going to have sharps coming in and grabbing the plus. And sometimes you'll see guys who are laying 27.5, 28.5 points and stuff like that, and they're sharp. Now the line ends up closing 31.5, and you say, yeah, maybe they were sharp after all. So sharps aren't afraid at all to lay the big number. And I've just got a couple of different guys on these games as well. So there could be, we talk about the basket of sharp players, if you want to call it, that I have. It's about 10 to 12 accounts that are probably the cream of the crop who win, year over year, long term. So is it possible that the line will move enough that some guy comes the other way? For sure. Is it likely? Probably not.
All right. So suffice to say, it would surprise you if any sharp action came in. If anything, it's going to come in more on the dogs in these games. All right. So the way this show goes is I ask Brent a bunch of games specifically that I want to hear his specific opinion on, and then at the end of the show, I just ask him an open-ended question about the notable sharp and or public action that he's taken from the rest of the card. And again, Brent is the headlines manager at DSI, which of course is one of the pillars of the Chris family of books. You can read all about that at sportsbookreview.com. So Brent basically sees all the action that is relevant. Is that correct, Brent?
Yeah, if it comes through the door, I see it.
There you go. That's why that's why what Brent has to say is so meaningful and valuable. Brent, what can you tell us about the rest of the notable action from College Football Week 2?
Well, there's so much notable action that I'm probably going to run out of breath here. But
really?
One game that I just want to touch on because you look at a game like Ohio at Kansas, and it's probably the highest wagered game on the board I have this week, and you're just kind of, it makes you scratch your head and what? Who's betting this game? But this is a situation where you've had a lot of live movement, and I've got sharp action on both sides of the game. Again, I'm not really touching on this game because it's significant sharp action either way, but I've got sharp action both ways. So I had sharp guys come in on Kansas plus 2.5, plus 2. They even laid the -1, and I've had money the other way on Ohio plus 2.5 and plus 3. So really strong line movement there because Ohio did open up as a road favorite about 2.5 at Kansas. Sharps pounded Kansas when they were getting the plus money, and now other sharps have come back on Ohio now that they're getting the plus money. So a close game would not be a good result for us, but I just wanted to mention it because it was pretty strong live movement with a road favorite becoming a road dog. Right now we have Kansas as just a 1-point favorite at home, so that one's kind of flip-flop, but just a ton of action on that one.
So that's interesting. So is that just sharps battling it out on both sides, or are you also getting public action tailing on both sides as well?
Yeah, this is the reason I mentioned this game is because if you just look at the the brand name of these teams, it's not really a game where you're going to have a lot of public guys involved.
Right.
Probably not even before the day of the game. The public generally manages their bankroll to the point where they're betting on a day-to-day basis and not laying out their bankroll, say Thursday or Friday for Saturday and Sunday games. So this is a case where you just had sharps going back and forth, and it's interesting for us. Again, as long as the game doesn't land 1, 2, or 3, whatever, we should be fine no matter what happens. But just a ton of action on a kind of weird game, I would say.
Yeah, awesome info. Brent, what else can you tell us about notable sharp and or public action from the rest of College Football Week 2?
Well, UMass, who was an interesting game last week on the road at Florida and only lost 24-7. The under there was a sharp play for sure. That's Boston College at UMass. Boston College is a 16.5-point favorite. Our total now is 39, but sharp action came under 41. So that's a 2-point move there so far. It's pretty good action there. Arkansas, another game there. I got sharp action on Arkansas. They are at TCU. Line is down to TCU -6, -115. Sharp action came on Arkansas +7. We touched on the Ohio two-way action there. We also touched on the under 56.5 with the Michigan Central Florida game. Central Florida plus 36 was sharp. Penn State and Pittsburgh. I've got a total play there that was the under 49, only sitting at 48. So I've got kind of decent two-way action so far, but the sharper of the action was under 49. That's Penn State at Pittsburgh. Moving down to Cincinnati, Purdue. That's another total play. We're all the way down to 59. Sharp action came at 53. So the sharps are sharp because they know what they're doing. There's a 4-point move where they're from the sharps came in. So again, I mean, totals we do move a little stronger. We're not so afraid, depending on who comes in, to move like a full point, a point and a half. Sometimes when we have a situation like that. So we do what we got to do. Talking about big dogs, UL Monroe is another one. They're at Oklahoma. Oklahoma, 46.5 point favorite. Oklahoma, of course, was an outright loser last week at Houston. Sharp guys came in and grabbed UL Monroe plus 47. Central Michigan we touched on, plus 21. Or did we touch on that? No, that's another one. Central Michigan is at Oklahoma State. Central Michigan plus 21, minus 05. Also sharp action there. Tulsa plus 29.5. We touched on that. Wake Forest and Duke I want to mention just because that's another game where I've got huge action. And again, it's sharp guys going both ways on this game. They laid almost as initially it was coming in on the plus money, so the Wake Forest money plus like 6, I think it was, plus 6, plus 5.5 on Wake Forest. Line got driven all the way down to like 4 and juice. Sharps came back the other way on Duke minus 4 and minus 5. We're all the way back up to 6.5 now. So really good two-way action on that game. I just want to mention that because it's been real heavy action. And again, it is a situation where we're kind of bouncing between 4 and 6.5. So it's not really a terrible spot for us at all. It's not like we'll get landing on key numbers in terms of 3 and 7 and stuff like that in college. Kentucky and Florida, that's another game I want to mention as well, just because ton of action both ways, which you kind of expect. Kentucky plus 17 with some decent, what we call, pseudo sharp action, and Florida minus like 15.5, which is where we are now. We got it both ways, so good two-way action for us there. Western Kentucky, we touched on that one. That was plus 28.5, minus 05 where the sharp money came in. Virginia is at Oregon. Virginia sharp catching plus 24.5 points. That line's down to 23.5. Right? Was that a wince of pain there, Peter? You made the chalk on Oregon?
Yeah, I did. Not only that, Brent, I bet TCU at minus 7.5. I mean, I got to be honest, otherwise this show won't be entertaining. I bet both Oregon at minus 24 and TCU at minus 7.5, Brent. And you're telling me that that's on the square side of both those games.
Well, I'm not calling you a square.
All right. Thanks for the info, Brent. Carry on, please. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Good. Moving right along.
I
just want to touch on Florida Atlantic and Miami, Florida. We had just like a ton of money all week long on Miami. It just didn't stop. All one way. That line went from 21, 22, all kind of pseudo sharp action all the way up to 25. At 25, we finally got money back on Florida Atlantic, so that's why the line movement is what it is. 21 all the way up to 25. People were laying Miami, Florida. Now at 25, sharp guy came back the other way on Florida Atlantic. So good two-way action there. Just worth noting, kind of how key the numbers are. So sharp guy landed 21, another sharp guy taking the 25. So it's a big move, and we're a little bit vulnerable, but you got to do what you got to do to kind of balance the action. Virginia Tech, Tennessee. Getting decent support for both sides, but I do have definitely sharp action on Virginia Tech plus 11.5. They're at the road at Tennessee, Virginia Tech. Illinois at home, they're catching 7 now to North Carolina, and that line dropped from 9. Sharp action came in early on Illinois plus 9. And the last one I'm going to touch on is Boise State and Washington State. And this is kind of a bad situation for us, I'll say, on the total, Peter, in that the public is generally betting overs on these college games, and this is a case where they have bet the over on this one as well. But I also have 2 different sharps on the over. So I've got sharp money and I've got public money going over on the Washington State at Boise State game. They came in at first at 70, and then it came to 73. We touched up to 74 actually, and we're kind of bouncing between 73.5 and 74. But sharps and public on the over that game.
Wow. Awesome. I'm sorry?
And that's why I'm out of breath.
Yeah, Brent, awesome information as always. That's what Brent does. That's why this show is so popular and has been so popular for so many years. Brent from BetDSI, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week for College Football Week 3.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SPR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.